In this video, we're going to have a very basic introduction to Microsoft Excel. We're going to learn things like the names of cells, rows, columns, etc. We're going to learn a little bit about autofit and changing the size of rows and columns, a little bit about formatting, and finally a little bit about text boxes. In the next videos, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of Excel and using formulas in Excel. So if this is the first time you've used Excel, when you open it, you will be within Sheet 1. You'll see in the bottom left that you have a few sheets open. They have by default been called Sheet 1, Sheet 2, Sheet 3. And you sometimes, when you're working in Excel, want to use multiple sheets. So one thing you might want to do is rename those sheets. So if you want to rename a sheet, you put your cursor on the bottom left-hand corner on top of the tab name, Sheet 1. I'm going to right click, select rename. I'm going to call this one names. I'm going to click over to Sheet 2. I'm going to right click, click rename, click rename, and I'm going to call this one fit. I'm going to click Sheet 3, click rename, and I'm going to call this one format. And finally, you see that you can add in even more sheets. Over here on the next tab, I'm going to click that. It calls it Sheet 4. I'm going to right click, click rename, and I'm going to call it text boxes. All right, here in the names worksheet, I'm going to just go through the basic vocabulary that people often use in Excel. So first of all, there are cells. I have my cursor right now in cell A1. You notice when my cursor is in cell A1, the column name A and the row name 1 is highlighted. If I were to click over to a different cell, for example, cell F5, you'll notice when I'm in that cell, column name F and row name 5 is highlighted. You'll notice when I'm writing within a cell, you can see it being written within the cell, but also here you can see the same thing being written in what's called the formula bar. We'll come back to that and see the importance of that formula bar later when we're writing formulas, but you can see your cell writings there or within the cell itself. You can click on the name of a column and it highlights the entire column. You can click on the name of a row and it will highlight the entire row. If you want to manually change the size of a column, put your cursor up in the name of the column, slide it over to the right side of the column edge until your cursor is right in between the two different columns. You'll see that the cursor changes. It now looks like a vertical line with arrows pointing left and right. If you now hold down your left mouse button and drag it, you can resize the column to the size that you want. Another way to change the size of a column that I find useful often, sometimes you might be writing in a cell and I might write something like the red fox is fast. All right, so I wrote a little sentence. You notice when I write this sentence, it actually was so long that it bled off the side of the cell into the cell to the right. I would like to change the column width so that my entire sentence fits inside that cell. So one way to do that is to put my cursor up here between cell D and E until it looks like a vertical line with arrows pointing outward. I can grab it and manually drag it out. But here's a different way. If I want to, I can put my cursor up there between cells D, between the names D and E until it looks like a little vertical line, and just double click your left mouse button. Double click and it auto fits the entire column width so that it'll be large enough to fit the very largest thing in that column. So for example, let me come over here to column H. If I wrote blue is great, red is even better, purple is the best of all. So you notice that the sentence purple is the best of all is the longest sentence in that column. Now, if I put my cursor up here between the names H and I and make it a vertical line, double click, it makes all of column H big enough so that you can see the biggest sentence. All right, another way to change the size of your columns, it's pretty common and to fit text within your cells. Sometimes you might be creating something like an input-output table. So for example, I might have time in years as the input, profit in dollars as the output. And I could drag my columns to make them wider to fit all that text. But instead, another common thing we do is I put my cursor on top of the cell I'm interested in changing, and up here in the Home tab, in the Alignment group, you find a Wrap Text option. If you click that, it resizes your cell. It makes it the same column width, but it makes the row a little wider so that it will just wrap the text around and fit it all inside. I can do the same thing with this cell that says profit in dollars. I put my cursor in that cell and I select auto fit. And there you go. All right. So actually, hey, look, I did all the fit content already within that worksheet. Looks like I had planned to do all that in a separate worksheet, but since I already did it, I would like to delete this entire worksheet that says fit. So if I click onto it, right click, I can hit delete. I don't need that worksheet. Now I'm down to a worksheet names, a worksheet format, and a worksheet text box. All right, let's talk a little bit about the basics of formatting. Most of you have worked in Microsoft Word, I'm sure, and dealt with formatting before. So for example, if I have the words red, blue, green, you can change text color just like you do in Word. Up here in the Home tab, font, I can select the color tab. I can select red for red and blue for blue, and hey, that says green, not green. Green for green. So you can change the color of entire cells. You can, let's see, add borders. That's a nice thing in Excel. So if I have time and profit, and I had 0, 1, 2, 3, and for profit 100, 200, 300, 400, I sometimes would like to have a nice little border around my table. So I highlight the whole table just like you would grab it to copy and paste it. Right clicked, I selected Format Cells, and we have several tabs here. The one I'm interested in right now is Border. So I select Border, and I can click an outline and fill in the insides as well. And you see then it creates a nice little border around my table. And generally, these sorts of things, like filling in some cells, you can highlight them, format cells, fill. See, I can fill it in, kind of make it gray in color in those cells. You can play with these sorts of things when you're ready to create a nice worksheet that other people are going to view. It's kind of nice to add some color and borders, that sort of thing. All right, let's go on to text boxes. So most of the time that we use Excel, we're really using it to perform calculations, create graphs, do easy calculations that we don't want to do by hand. And we're going to work on that in the next video. Now, sometimes when you're doing these sorts of calculations, we want to add some words next to it. So for example, here, if I had a little input-output table already created, like so. Okay, so let's say we had this little input-output table, and I wanted to make some comments about this table. I could come over here to the side of the table and make comments like, here are my comments about this table. And I'm just kind of writing directly in there. But often you have, complicated comments that are many sentences long, and you might even have like math notation that you want to insert. So writing directly in Excel in the cells themselves is often not the best bet. Instead, when you're performing calculations in Excel and then you want to add some commentary, it's often nice to create a little text box off to the side and insert there your comments. So to do that, I see up here next to the Home tab is the Insert tab. I'm going to select that, and you see over here there is an option for text box. Now, when you click it, it's different than Microsoft Word. Notice when you click a text box in Microsoft Word, it basically just inserts a text box for you, and then you can resize it. But when you're in Excel, when you click text box, you have to come back down here to the Excel worksheet. And you see my cursor looks a little funny right now. It's like a little upside down cross. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start creating this text box from the top left-hand corner. I am about to hold down my left mouse button. Here I go. Holding down the left mouse button, and I'm going down and over. See, I'm drawing the text box. There it is. Let me do that again. I clicked Insert, Text Box. Makes my cursor look funny. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to hold down the left mouse button, down and over. Once you have it created, you can click on it and resize it if you want. And then you just click in it and start writing. This is my text box and all my wonderful comments. All right. So there's our text box. Another nice thing you can do, since this is a math class, is you can insert math font right inside of this text box. So sometimes you might need to use exponents or math symbols like pi. So here in this text box, if I want to create some math equation symbols, again, I go to the Insert tab, and you'll see right over on the right side is Equation. I click that, and then you could get all these wonderful features for making exponents like this. If I click this little exponent button, I can click x squared. I can insert a different one, let's say a fraction, 3x plus 8 over y plus 9. I can make symbols. Over here, there's a bunch of different symbols available, like pi, and there's pi right there. And if you want to get crazy and get into like sigma and epsilons, they're all available to you right here to play with.